Oh my god! It's not our standard review video that I've been doing because Chauncey's here because we both saw the movie and we both want to talk about it. What did we go see, Chauncey?
The Boy and the Heron.
Saw The Boy and the Heron. Saw the new Studio Ghibli movie theaters yesterday.
The first studio in theaters, like ever, for us
Yeah.
both.
Mm-hmm. And as we say, start off, we saw the dubbed version.
Yeah.
We
Yeah, we're
didn't.
not.
But some people. So if that makes you want to click off the video, can okay, it's, I understand. Rob's a subby too, so I understand the mentality. But I'm a dub guy.
It's like to listen to it.
Yeah, I didn't go to a movie
Nope.
to read. I appreciate the beautiful animation, like in this particular movie. All right, okay, well, we'll get into it. We'll try to stay spoiler free as long as we can. And first initial thoughts. What'd you think?
I liked it. I really liked it.
Yeah,
Liked it.
I really liked it too. Was it okay? Was it your favorite Studio Ghibli movie?
I don't know that it was my favorite, but I mean, it definitely is up there. I think in my top five. I think I can place it in my top five.
Yeah. Okay. I think I could say I could do top five. Definitely. What's your number one?
I think my number one would be Howl's Moving Castle, but it's like right there with From Up on Poppy Hill, and then probably, and then Nausicaa. I've lost count.
Four.
That's four.
So then this one
This
is
one I think is my number five.
this one's
I
your
think
number
this one
five.
is my number five.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd probably put this one off about four or three. Okay, so there's a phenomenon that's been happening in movies and TVs. You know, like Steven Spielberg comes back, does stuff, the movie sucks. It's like West Side Story. Ridley Scott can't do Alien anymore.
Yeah.
Um, James Cameron can't do Terminator anymore. But can I'm sorry if I butcher his name, audience. Mawazaki.
Oh my
Whatever.
gosh, I had it until you said it.
Yeah, but he came out of retirement for this, I believe. I'll double check, and future Mike will put it up in subtitle words in the video if I'm correct or not. But I believe he came out of retirement for this. Does he still have it? Does he still have the magic? Is it fading a little bit?
Still has it.
Still has it?
He still has it.
I don't think it was his most polished one, but I think it still has him all over. I think he still
Yeah.
has still unique and creative, different, still very much him. I mean, it's like majority of his stuff. It is set in the World War II, either pre-bomb, during bomb, or right after bomb.
Right around there, that 1940s, right around World War II,
Mm.
Japan, and it's usually like a
Yeah, countryside where kind of the industry is just starting to touch. So there's like that mix of the modern and the new, and it's kind of a
the old and traditional are like getting to blend.
yeah, like it's always like a young person
And maybe
trying to
there's
like learn about the traditional, get sucked into the world.
maybe there's a little bit of like colonialism
Yeah,
that's there, but it's pretty traditional. It's very classic hymn setting.
yeah. So a little bit different thing. I can't remember other movies that they had, but the background for this one is like watercolors.
Yeah. There's others that have been watercolors.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mononoke is watercolors.
really? I guess I
There's-
never really noticed.
It's the
So
landscapes.
yeah.
The landscapes are
They're
those watercolors.
and they're beautiful, as always.
And they're very detailed. Like there's a lot of like classic Japanese stuff and classic Japanese dress. There's classic Japanese silverware and like all these like very like attention to detail
Mm-hmm.
that like I really appreciate it as I was like watching it
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Like when there's it's not really a spoiler, but there's a scene where the main character is making an arrow. Like you see like if he's made to do all the string, every strand in the hair, everything like that, and like fitting into the shaft very well.
And the bend in the wire after he
Mm-hmm.
takes it off.
And how it's not like perfect. And
Yeah.
everything like that. Let's move on to the story. No. Any spoiler-free thoughts on the story?
It was complex.
I would say it was definitely one of his more complex, more kind of out there. There was.
I don't know. A lot of his stories are out there. I mean, Howl's Moving Castle is not exactly like rooted in reality.
No, it's just more fantasy.
Yeah, and I mean,
Like,
it's definitely not as fantasy as that.
Yeah.
But it definitely has like a lot of Spirited Away elements where it's like there's the real world and the world that we're in, and then there's another world, multiple worlds.
Yeah.
And they're both like side by side, kind of a thing going on. But I mean,
kind of like his multiverse kind of thing, dimensions, planets, worlds, kind of stuff. There's a little bit of a space element to it.
There's some timeline stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's worlds. I don't know if it's like all of his movies are connected.
No, so that is, I guess thinking too. It's not too much of a spoiler, but at one point there's long hallways, bunch of doors, and you can like open a little window in it and look through, and it's like you can see which world, time. It's not clear if it's like always a different timeline or a different like world or something. I really thought they were gonna take that opportunity for the main character to like look through a couple of them and see like all the other movies as like a nice little Easter egg homage, little fan service for like his allegedly last movie, and kind of like, oh, look at all the stuff. I thought that would have been nice. I think that would have been classy fan service. I wouldn't have been over like, oh man, they didn't need to have that in there. Something like that would have been. I was like, oh, that's nice.
I completely disagree.
Yeah.
I'm really glad they didn't do that. Like, I did not want, like, all of his movies.
They don't need to be interconnected.
They don't need to be interconnected. Like, I like that they're their own stories or their own thing. Like, here's this, and it's like lives by itself. And like, I'm really glad that like that.
Yeah, I am pretty sick of the multiverse stuff. I think that's one I could have swallowed.
But okay, so back to the story. Like, it was really good. It was very complex. It was a little bit. I don't think hard to follow, but there was a lot of like trying to figure out like what's going on and putting pieces together. Like, they're definitely giving you, oh, here's a string, and then I'm gonna pick up that string later. But like, it's not gonna be like, hello, this is a string, and you're gonna pick it up later. Like, he's not saying that. He's just like leaving you to pick up the strings yourself.
He let the audience either kind of figure some of that stuff out, didn't just play it straight. Just say it plain to your face.
Oh yeah.
And when there was stuff that did, they kind of just be like, in case you hadn't figured it out by now, they threw in a kind of a little scene there that it wasn't like big sweltering music, dramatic moment. Luke, I'm your father. It's just like,
yeah.
No. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I was right. Okay, that's what that is.
Yeah.
You know, it was just in there where you're like, yeah, they like them have all figured it out themselves. They didn't really need to say it, and then how the dialogue kind of naturally threw it in there worked. You're like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That made you go, okay, I'm good, I'm not crazy. Somewhat confirmed to me that what I was thinking was true.
Yeah.
I will say a little slow to get into like the real meat and potatoes, Ghibli style stuff. A little bit slower to kind of throw you into the alternate world things. It wasn't necessarily bad, it was just it takes the longer time than some of the other movies to do introduce it.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Disagree.
Thought it was just perfectly timed enough.
I felt like it was a different kind of pacing, right? Like, I definitely at times was like kind of like taken aback, like, wow, we're like really pushing this Heron like in our face, like like you're pushing this along, and I felt like, okay, why are we being pushed along? But that makes sense story-wise because the character is being pushed along. The character is being pushed into this scenario. And we as the audience are being like, I felt that, like, being pushed into there. And so I really liked it. I felt like it was a weird pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it was too slow, and not that it was too fast, but that it felt like we were being pushed somewhere, but that made sense because the character is being pushed somewhere. So I actually really liked it.
He was very much hesitant to go to the thing that would send him to the world. He was just like,
well, yeah.
He's just like, fuck that.
Yeah, he's fighting.
That's probably dangerous. I don't want to do that.
He's like,
that's creepy and weird.
I think this, I guess, minor spoiler, but like, oh my gosh, here's this thing, and it's creepy, and it's following me, and I'm not happy about it, and he's pushing up against it, and I felt that push in the plot moving along, and I think that's where it felt like it was slow, because you're not getting into the meat and potatoes of like this other world and figuring out this other stuff, because we were too busy in the front half of this, because the character didn't want to move forward, and I felt like it would be hard to make him want to move forward because of the way that the character was written, because he's not one of those characters that is like,
he's not the Alice, oh look a hole, let me fall down it. It's not. It's not the smell food or hear noises, spirit away.
I wasn't gonna say that. I was gonna say, like, it's not this guy that's like, I'm off for adventure, but
he's not seeking adventure, and he didn't have as much of like curiosity.
He had completely different motivations. Yeah. His motivations really were my family and my mom. That was my motivations. So that's and that's what shone through, and that's what came through when he finally did. The plot finally moved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the kid's clearly very smart too.
Oh yeah.
His father is a leader of industry and factory construction, so
building high-end materials for the war effort.
Mm-hmm.
So
he's like through a couple of dialogue, you get the sense that okay, he's been in factories before, probably cleared him, taught him some stuff. Yeah. So when he goes and makes like a bow and arrow to fight a heron, you're like, okay, no, he probably figured out how to do it, and the fact that he was kind of like convincing all the older people of the house to kind of help him out, and how he did that all made you be like, okay, no, this kid who's somewhat young, absolutely.
Yeah, he's no slouch.
Yeah. Plus, it's during the war, and not the younger in Japan likes everything. Rages. He would have been taught to defend himself, like that. I love in classic Studio Ghibli style, even though it's set in war. It's not about it.
Yeah, so it's set around like war time, but it's not like the story's not about the war. The story's not about like, oh, peace over war, or the complexities of war, or the effects of war, or et cetera, et cetera. Like, it's not about that. And it's not even about like our communion with nature and our communion with our like spiritual selves,
not even afterlife or death or anything.
Like, none of that. Like, it's really not. Like, it's really just
it's a family story.
It's a family story. It's about like, I'm going after my mom. That's it.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to have a mom, and what does it mean to be a mom, and what does it mean to like have a son, and all these things. So yeah, no, no, it really is just like, it's about family, it's family relationships, and like, what does it mean to bring my son to a new woman, and to like take him somewhere new and explore these relationships. That's what this is about. And it just happens to take place around this turning point in Japan, and it just happens to take place like in a fantastical world, and it just happens to take place in these beautiful landscapes, and it just happens to take place where we get to see that dichotomy of progress and colonialism and ancient Japan, and the two coming together. We just happen to get to see that all together. And I feel like that sends more of an impactful message than anything straight in our face of like, this is how we should be living. And I feel like well executed. But I feel like it's almost always very well executed like that with his movies.
Yeah. Or anything else you want to add before we get into the spoiler section?
I think so. I think it was really good. It's a classic Miyazaki's movie. Um, it was good. Go watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that seeing it in theaters gives a better experience?
Oh yeah.
Is this one that you say like, oh, absolutely, go see in theater movie?
Yes. And I wish I had seen other ones in theaters too. Like, it's well worth it. Any good movie theaters.
Yeah, support
So.
the theaters, support movies. Want to criticize the bad, prop up the good, and support them. Like Godzilla plus one and or minus one, same things twice in a row. Japanese movies coming out and like just dominating. Because I guess it's been well. All right, and now thank you, like and subscribe. We're gonna get into spoilers now. Watch this far, thank you, and spoilers go. So the only space real thing that happened is the big stone falls from the sky, and it's like a meteorite. It's like the doorway to the alternate dimension stuff. I know your I know your face kind of like when I was like some space like stuff. But they were just kind of like it fell from the sky and it looks vaguely meteor like, and they didn't really and that's so okay. So when you're saying oh it's not like really like a doorway, that's kind of like my slight one of my slight complaints with the movie. I appreciate that it was a mom and family story.
Yeah.
But I do wish he gave a little bit more clarity to what this fantastical world was. Some of his other movies is kind of like throw it into the world, you understand it, you get it. Like there doesn't need to be a lot of complaining. This one he had so much more complexity to it. More like okay, he had like dream that actually happened but didn't happen, and then blah blah blah, and it's like time doesn't really make sense. So you can have all these things happen, and then wake up from him and say, okay, it's fine because like time's weird. But I wish he kind of explained it, fleshed out a little bit better. Like, like that, like the very end of the movie. Spoiler. This whole big, it's the kid. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say the character's name. Butcher it, and I'm careful with my main character kid. Like his great uncle ends up being like the one who like runs and maintains stone that the link to other dimension stuff. He like works with the stone, like can build worlds to make balance. The whole thing is like building blocks to do it. It's like a line where like if you want to take over me, you just have to build these blocks one every 3 days. And the guy's very old, and his block is only like 10 blocks. So how did he go from like flashback age to very old in this tower he showed that that's the one that he's been doing and it's about to fall over, but it's only like 10 blocks if he's only had to do it one every 3 days. I don't think it doesn't take you out of the movie too much. It doesn't ruin it for me. Because it is not really about that in the movie.
Nitpicky. And I don't think that's what that was. I think it's just like rebalancing and like fussing with the world.
Well, he said make a new one. You put in the new block, and then I think that was the whole thing where it's like the older man's his block was becoming unstable. So like all these weird things were kind of starting to happen in these worlds, that caused essentially the chaos and the baddies that he faced were more times than not a type of bird, like a parakeet or a pelican. It was mostly parakeets and pelicans.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, the master brought him here, and then they kind of turned evil.
But see, that's something that he inflicted upon himself, right? Like the master inflicted that upon himself because he brought parakeets and he brought pelicans, but from the regular world, inflicted upon himself. See, I don't think.
But did he do that through the act of putting a stone on the tower, and then as it started to become a balance, the like things that the parakeets arrived because of the act of putting the stone, and then that made that. That's where I'm like, there's a lot of like, I don't think so. I think there's throwaway lines and like non-explanations about this world.
Or perhaps this is something that like we're supposed to like draw the conclusions ourselves, because in my mind, this is like he physically brought, just like we see at the end, where like the parakeets and the pelicans all fly through on their own, and then they become like regular parakeets and pelicans again, instead of like not, they're like magical ones. But like, in my mind, that means he brought them there. Which, I mean, like, we knew that they had been brought there anyway, because the pelican had said, we used to be regular, and then we were brought here, and there's no food for us to eat, you know? And so, like, I think he caused his own demise, because here I am, I'm making this magical world where nothing makes sense, okay? And then, like, everything's made up, and the rules don't matter. And I'm going to bring a pelican from a normal place where a pelican fits in this food web. Put it somewhere where there's not a food web.
So it's like if a toddler who doesn't understand food chain tried to plug in animals, and it was
just like it's like just
turns out mosquitoes are important.
Picking up a puffin and sending it down in the Florida Everglades and going like survive, like,
and then it suddenly gets 3 feet taller, can talk, and wants to eat.
Yeah, because you've thrown it into a magical place.
Yeah.
And the witch doctors in the Everglades have turned it into a magical talking
the magical voodoo stones that they pecked looking for the food, like shot them with lightning and turned them into magical talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you've taken something that's normal and you've turned it not normal, and then you're like, this will work, and like, no, like, you should have made something from scratch like you did all the other things. But I guess we don't know that he didn't take catfish from the pond, and that's what the fish were. And we don't know that like the trees aren't trees from the regular world and he's molded them. We don't know that. And I don't think we need to know that. I think we just need to know this world is unbalanced. He can't balance it anymore. And I think that's what that was at the end, where like his tower is falling over, is he's just trying to keep it balanced. And I don't think it was like, need to build a new tower every 3 days. I think it's just...
No, you said you have to put a block on the tower every 3 days.
I don't know that it's like really... I don't think he said that. Maybe
yeah,
I'm wrong.
He did.
I don't think...
He was... Yeah, he's like, all you have to do to take over from me is like once every 3 days, you have to put one of these blocks, the tower,
I thought
that's
you said
got
you
like
just
no
have
mouse.
to balance it every 3 days.
You have to put a new block on it.
I thought it was just you need to balance it every 3 days.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and then that's why the king parakeet, who was like, "Oh, it's like you're leaving that nonsense," and he was like, "I'll just do it.
I'll just build a tower."
It's where he didn't take his time to build the tower, because
my
whole thing was like, okay, you take it once every 3 days, so you take that time to really think about where you're gonna put it. How is it gonna be balanced after you put it? You take your time to craft this tower. This guy was like, we don't have the time to do that, so we just haphazardly threw it together, and it turned unbalanced and chaos.
Dave
Bautista,
by the way, is like perfect.
He did a great job with it too. Even though it's weird, they kind of drew a parakeet that looked vaguely like Dave Bautista.
They did. It was a very big parakeet.
But you know who did? You know who I think like did the best? Like, only sometimes picked up who it was.
Oh, the Heron.
Yeah.
Oh.
For me, it was Christian Bale.
The
dad.
Yeah.
There was only a couple lines where you went, "There's the accent." A vague British accent came out, or a vague Christian Bale like tone come out. For the rest of it, you're like, Christian Bale really like voice for this. I thought he did really good.
It was really good. I can't think of his name. William Dafoe.
Was he the crane?
He was the Heron.
He was the Heron?
I'm not...
No, he was the pelican.
Sure. Sure, he was not.
Going! Alright. Live Google check. I usually... I'll do my notes that I usually have when I script out stuff. Because Robert Pattinson was the Grey Heron.
No!
Yeah, that's even more shocking.
No!
Yeah, Willem Dafoe was just the pelican.
He was just the pelican.
Which was like, he was barely in there, even though Willem Dafoe should have been the Heron.
Yeah.
But I still think Robert Pattinson did a great
Robert
job.
Pattinson, that's fantastic.
He knocked that out of the park.
He did really knock that out of the park. That was really good.
If Robert Pattinson makes you think he's Willem Dafoe, that's pretty good. Florence Pugh. Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Well, he does a great job, even though
Oh, and
even
Dan
though he's
Stevens.
a fruitcake. He
That's
did a
the
good job. I definitely think every night. I think they all had like bit background voice too, because I'm pretty sure the guy who did the pedal bike at the very beginning was also Christian Bale. Because it was he just did the dad voice and was just saying yes ma'am. I was like, oh yeah, that they just had Christian Bale just say that, so they didn't have to pay another guy. They all took turns just doing little background voices.
But okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert Pattinson. I was
Mhm.
wrong. I admit that.
I was going to say I remember I couldn't remember who it was, but I just remember when those credits went by and I went, oh wait, that wasn't Willem Dafoe. And then I saw him as the Pelican. I was like, wait, he was only the Pelican? He was there for like 3 seconds.
Okay, but Robert Pattinson did a really good job.
He did. Man, you really thought the person voicing him was like an old man.
You really did.
Yeah, you could not tell it was Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I did not expect. So the Gray Heron is essentially a man in a spirit man thing in a heron suit. And
Yeah,
when he like pulls the head up, essentially becomes the heron. I did not expect his character design to look like that. I thought he was in the look.
It was definitely uglier than I was wanting.
A little uglier and fatter than I kind of wanted him to be.
I know, but I kind of get it. Like,
little
ugly fat demon.
Yeah,
guiding you through a crazy world.
Well, yeah, keep you scathy. You don't know if he's lying or not. He's got the face of a liar. Big Pinocchio nose. It also looks like a beak kind of thing. Yeah, his nose was terrible. But good lord, there was like a mom and a daughter behind us, and when the Heron started doing the really stuff at the very beginning, I was like, oh, I don't know if I would have brought my daughter that young to see this, because
he did some really creepy shit.
He did some creepy stuff this time until you got to like the magical, or like the cute parakeets and actual humor started getting into.
It was really creepy in the beginning, with him like crawling on top of the roof and him like stalking.
Having like you seeing teeth being in the beak.
Yeah, just like all of a sudden you see teeth, and then like you think maybe it's a tongue, and then you find out later that it's like a nose.
Yeah, like the nose comes out. Yeah, you think it's a weird tongue thing, and then you see kind of like an eye coming out of the mouth, and you're like, and like instantly,
suddenly it has 4 eyes, and then it has like 2 eyes, and it has like 4 eyes, and then it has like eyes up here, and then like all of, and it's
it's like subtle too, because like at the very beginning you're just watching him kind of like go into this. It's essentially the main character's mom died in a fire.
Lady Hemi.
Yeah, and they go. The father remarries, having another baby with dead mom's sister. So it's like, you know, the kid's like conflicted about this. He's very silent. Just kind of like, what's going on? And then the crane just appears in the background multiple times, and like just getting creepier and creepier every scene, kind of stalking the child until the child finally just goes like, "What the fuck is up with this crane?" Goes to like front it, and then it starts talking, and then you hear the voice, and you're like, "Oh God!" You really thought it was this creepy Willem Dafoe voice.
Yeah.
What picked it up maybe a little bit, just a little bit.
Like how? How would you push it forward?
I think you just tighten up kind of some. I know, and I don't want to like take away from the beautiful art from it, but there could have been just, you know, like when I'm editing videos here, especially like our Let's Play stuff, like couple seconds fraction stuff really tone down that thing a little better without taking a lot away. Stuff like that. It was kind of like type of slightly long.
But see, then I think sitting here and me going like, oh my gosh, that was rushed. I wish I would have had more about like, him having to go to school and like.
I thought the school thing was paced perfectly. As for like I don't necessarily mean like I wanted less time in the movie. I think they could have cut down some of that stuff and be able to go on to add more of what I wanted with like the world and explanation, and kept almost the same runtime. That's okay that you that. I would have liked to. It's
Didn't
just
need it.
me. I'm glad you didn't. If you've seen the movie and are watching this, let us know in the comments below what you think about the pacing and everything like that.
Well, it's not pacing. You're not looking for pacing. You're looking for a change in content. You're looking for a change in content.
Some pacing and some additional content. Like there was definitely parts that I thought the pacing should have been sped up a little bit, and through that sped up, if they were still going to time, then they could have added the things I wanted.
Cut down, because it's not like we got like big, long, sweeping like aerial shots or like big scenery shots. Like we really, everything was very tight. Like everything was a very measured and purposeful moment in the first half before we get to the worlds, the magical world back. Like, I mean, like, I truly am struggling to pick out where would I have pulled something, right? Like, there's like montages, but like you need the montages to explain, like, oh, suddenly he has a bow and arrow. Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I wouldn't cut down any of the montages.
Like, so like you can't get rid of the montages, and like any of the time when he's sick, where it's like slow, but like it's measured. He's sick, over being sick, taking a sip of water, been out for 4 days, and there's this, and he's watching and listening to the Heron on top of the roof. Like, it's all very purposeful to help set that creepy tone and help set that I'm moving forward and I don't want to. Like, everything. And like watching Natsuko, like the adoptive mom, like walking in, like all of it, I felt like was very purposeful. I'll use.
Okay, I definitely thought some of the moves could be taken around like a couple seconds here and there to put it down a little bit. Fine.
Well used.
Don't have to get so offended. Clearly, it's 10 out of 10. You wouldn't change and improve anything. So how is it not your number one movie then? Of his?
Because it's not my favorite of the stories.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm allowed to have that. I feel like there's been Spirited Away and how. Well, okay, so I think we've talked about the front half a lot. What about second half? How did you feel about the second half and how it was laid out, based? I mean, there's definitely like a lot of questions. I think that's one of your big questions everywhere, like about like Grave of the Dead and questions about like.
Yeah, they never really. I really thought once they first got into the New World, there was like a graveyard, a bunch of pelicans that push them into it and say, "Oh, go in there, go in there," and there's like impeding kind of force, or like ooh, and then different character comes in, essentially a younger version of a bunch of old ladies. There's a bunch of old grandmas that kind of like have a vague idea of what the Nans that have a vague idea of what kind of the stone in the tower where their house is, and one of them gets dragged into the world with them, and they're like, oh, they're kind of separated. You know what happens? The young version of her goes up, saves him while he's in the graveyard.
This is where the time travel thing kind of comes into play, because the Heron's like, oh, your mom's still alive, and in a way is trapped in time.
He was like half lying, half telling the truth.
Yeah, younger version of her.
Because the Heron was originally trying to essentially kill the kid. Yeah. But the kid outsmarted him.
Yeah.
And then so he ended up being brought into this other world, and the Heron's forced to like be guided by the great uncle, master of the tower.
Yeah.
So the movie then explores them starting to trust each other and become friends.
But
everything like that.
But Mahito's mother, Hime, and she went through into the tower when she was young. And so, because I think time is definitely slowed down, if not almost stopped, in the tower.
Yeah, the nannies had said when she originally disappeared and came back, she came back as if she had not aged at all, and it had been like.
It had been a year.
Yeah.
So Hime had gone in little, so she's still there when he goes back. He goes into the tower, presumably approximately 20 years later.
Something like that.
Something like that. Like,
yeah,
he's
but,
probably 10, 12.
Yeah.
And...
Okay, so, but the Nan lady comes back.
But she had gone in too, with Hime, way back in the day.
Yeah, and she... Because when you leave the tower, you forget. Yeah. But
I don't think she totally forgot, because when she was going into the tower the second time with Mahito.
I want to finish setting up this thing.
Go.
Yeah, the lady Dave shows up. It's not explicitly said that she's the Nan, except the fact that she's wearing like the same shirt, so it's kind of left the audience same clothes, and it's later saying that the kid figures out it's her name. She's like, "Oh, I didn't tell you my name. Who's that?" And you go, "Oh, it's the blah blah blah."
Yeah.
But she saves him from the graveyard. You never see a monster force, nothing. It's just darkness. There's like a spell. Like, oh, there's magic in the world. And then they go. And I was like, oh, at some point he's gonna come back and like face the thing and like save the world from chaos is what I kind of initially thought the story was gonna go. Never go back. You kind of see the outline of the cave thing again later, but it's not like explicitly the same place. There's like almost there's like a same cave like rock structure in the birthing chamber. Jared, you picked up that like a place of birth is like the same as the place of death. Yeah, so you see that, but other than that, it's not really explored. And yeah, the young version of Nan's there, and that's when you kind of get like he's not just gonna look out for you.
Yep. Kind
of vibe stuff's going. And now all the random crap you're saying, not crap,
gosh.
all the stuff you were saying, jumping way ahead. We don't need to go through the entire story.
No,
because we're about 40 minutes into this.
But there's lots of things that like he leaves open-ended, like, oh, the sailboats are like the dead, and like, okay, just
they're
leaves
all
that
phantoms,
there.
Yeah.
They're just phantoms. There's
it's very much a water-based world.
It is. There's other phantom things that are there to eat. They're a little bit more human-like, but they can't kill things. There's potential like souls of people.
Souls of babies, creatures, of animals.
Okay, yeah. It's not really explicitly clear that it's like people, but like there's like souls of.
They go up.
The living.
Yeah, they mature, go up to the clouds.
To our world.
And so it's kind of implied that our world is above them.
Yeah.
And they're in like an under sub world because how they got there is they basically melted through the floor.
Yeah.
And so it was like that's where I kind of was like, okay, so there's the upper world, lower, and then there's all these doors that go to alternate times and alternate worlds. So how is there an upper? And I was starting to get a little confused with that. And that's where I kind of would like a little more clarity, but it's all right. Yes. And then you start to get the questions of like, when the young Nan, when young Kiriko is there, she puts a bunch of wooden dolls around main guy, protect him asleep, and they're all Mahito, and they're all painted like the old Nans as they're old.
Yeah.
So that's where you're kind of like, how did she remember? Is she then before? Is it the actual one that fell through the floor? Because then and later at the very end of the movie, he's given like the wooden statue of the old Nan. And when they go back to the old, the wood statue forms into the old Nan again, as if the same exact one that had fallen through with them. Like, okay, so they weren't the same, and like so there was some confusion there, and I was like, oh man, I wish I wasn't slightly confused by that. I know I'm not the brightest pencil in the crown box, but I was kind of like, I wish there was a little more that, but it's okay because it's stupid. You give a little.
Studio Ghibli doesn't always make all the sense. Like we have things that just you just like roll with it.
There for the ride.
Like falling stars are fire. Okay.
Yeah, like the bomb dies in a fire, and and then young her has fire powers in the spirit world. So you're like,
right? Why does young her have fire powers, but Natsuko doesn't, and
Yeah.
neither does Mahito, and like
Yeah, Mahito should probably have powers also being in the bloodline, but like,
but like, and neither does Natsuko, and
Mhm.
and it's just like, okay, and like, why does Natsuko go into the tower in the first place?
To give birth there.
To give birth there, like, why there? Who knows, and like, why is she in this place where like nobody can go near her, or like the whole thing will collapse?
It's taboo to see her in a birthing chamber, and all.
And like, why is there a birthing chamber?
They just go. This is a rule. It's like, okay.
Why is there a birthing chamber? There's not humans in this world, so like, who's giving birth here? Like, there's like all these things. Like, don't make sense, and we just roll with it.
The stone has feelings about it, and say like, no, you can't look at her in the birthing chamber. It starts doing like spikes and sparks and fire.
The stone doesn't like it.
Like, get out of here.
They don't like people being there. Okay.
The stone very opposed to main character, even though the main character was picked out to be the successor of the stone. So you're counting what? Yeah. I was like, it's not. I don't think it was his tightest story or his best world building, but the main focus of it was the family stuff, accepting malice, accepting family, and all the stuff, and being with them, and everything else was kind of like, I don't want to say side stuff. It was all there to drive towards these.
It's the atmosphere
points
for it,
the atmosphere,
and it's really just there to support it, not doing anything else.
It just wasn't.
But it doesn't
wasn't
need to
like
be
fully structured.
I don't think it's not fully structured. It's not fully fleshed out. Don't think it's fleshed out, because then it leaves the room for like interpretations of.
And he just destroys it all, anyways.
Right, so then it doesn't matter.
Or whatever. It's just like, yeah, I don't want to be the successor. I want to be in my world with my family and my friends.
Mahito's like, I'm not going to be the successor. And like Natsuko, he just like, I just want Natsuko to go home. Natsuko's going to be my mom. And he says goodbye to Hime. And that's that.
Yeah. And then they have some side stuff about when they're telling the history about the great uncle and the stone tower that was built above it and all that. They say a lot of stuff about how he got obsessed with it and everything like that. And the uncle's kind of like, why wouldn't you want to take over this? What do you mean? He's like, I'm not going to fall for that same obsession. I just want to be with my family.
Yeah.
I think they could have explored that a little bit more.
Why though? The story is
because that's a great point and through line too. That could have been a little more interesting.
The point.
And then they could have built it up when he did the whole "I gave myself these scars," the malice thing. I was like, it just didn't. It wasn't like fully delivered. Me.
No, it felt perfectly enough. Like, oh, I hurt myself, and I wanted the hurt myself to come back too, and it does come back at the end. It's like, oh, here's these stones, and these stones are pure. They have no malice in it, and you need to be the one to operate these stones. I can't do it, and they're all full of malice, and it's like, I can't touch those because I contaminate them too. I did this unto myself. I have malice in me, and I would taint. That's it. Okay, good enough. Like,
I didn't quite pick up on that because the uncle didn't seem like he cared about on a stack, because when he was kind of first offering the whole thing, that's when Mahito was like, I don't want to touch them, they're filled with malice, that kind of stuff. And then he woke up from a dream.
His uncle said, that's why I chose you. You're very observant, or you're able to pick up on that.
Yeah, And then when he came back, he was like, "Here's the last stones in the entirety of this thing that have no malice in it.
I worked very hard to find
very
these
hard
for
to
you.
Scatter throughout the
Make
universe.
a better world than me."
Yeah.
And he's like, "I can't. I have malice too. I'd contaminate them." And here we are.
I didn't get the contaminate part. I just thought,
but that's understood. It's like an
I
understood statement that's there. It's like the other threads that he's like woven throughout the story in the world.
I picked it up as a different thread of like malice is okay.
But see, that's the whole point,
of like,
right? If
of like
he leaves the thread just out there, and then you get to pick on it, you get to like pull it in the direction that you take for yourself, and that is why these things are not completely fleshed out.
Yeah.
Just like true art in any good textbook and any literature teacher would tell you.
I sometimes definitely like, not everything needs to be Inception of was it a dream at the end. It's like I'm gonna be like, sometimes this wasn't a huge bug. As in like I don't care if that's the thread that you picked up or not. It's like this one gets an exception, but there's other times with movies I'm like, no, you need to explicitly say some stuff sometimes.
I think it's so nice that everything was not explicitly stated. I think that was so refreshing.
A lot of vagueness in some of the stuff.
But it's vagueness about things that don't matter.
It's pretty vague.
It's vagueness about shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah. About if having a little bit of chaos can still have balance and peace in the world.
Right? Like it doesn't matter.
It absolutely matters.
It doesn't matter because it's a world that fell apart anyway, and we're back in our world. So like,
see, it would have been cool if like if the stone didn't like fall apart and he did kind of take over, because he can kind of like him being like, it's like, well, it's like, if I was like, oh, it'd be cool if, the uncle's like, here's these new stones, completely start over, make a great world, and him just be like, no, I can fix this one. Like, you're my uncle, I want your legacy to kind of be here, but where he did wrong, I know how to fix it, and like, that's where like he is like he helps the pelicans, gives them more fish to do and things like that, and like he brings the peace that way, and they becomes. And then you have like the even more Inception twist of where the uncle isn't actually uncle; it's also an old Mexico, because we're more behind him because things are weird. I'm like, there's so many different things he going down it. I'm not. That doesn't like hurt my feelings the way he did, or think he did bad. I was just like, oh man, he could have done that. That would have been cool. I still like that it was about family and the mom and everything like that.
See, I think that's one of the great things about
it was nice that you can be like, oh, I'm not sure where you're gonna take this, and then he just
I think that's one of the great things about Studio Ghibli is that like they don't sacrifice. We don't see them sacrificing story to do something cool. And I feel like that's exactly what happened here.
I don't think that's a sacrifice of story.
That is absolutely a sacrifice of story. That completely changes all the motivation of the character, what he wants and what he sees. He's there. Why? He's looking for his mom. He's looking for Hime. And he finds Hime. And he gets the closure with Hime that he wanted. And then Natsuko gets the closure that she needs and that she wanted. This guy is accepting her as mom, and she gets closure, he gets closure, Hime gets closure. They all get like this nice, beautiful, like, I'm searching for my mom and I end up finding my mom and it's not who I originally way better than that. And then
it's more he accepted his two moms more than like
walked away with a mom that like he walk away with.
Yeah.
Right? So like he goes in looking for Hime and finds young Hime and he finds Natsuko and he saves Natsuko. Walk away from that. That's the whole point. I went in there for my mom. Just like, and I mean, we see that in the very opening scene. Like, nothing else mattered. Stay here. No, there's a fire raging and my mom's in the middle of it. Get her. And like, he running into the fire to go rescue her. So like, I mean, we see his motivation and who the character is in the very opening scene. I care about my mother. I'm going to go get her. Like, oh, my mother's in this tower. I'm going to go get her. Get her. Okay. It's not my mom. You tricked me. Okay. But there's this other person that I care about. And, like, he comes to accept as... So, like, him staying in the world was never an option because it would completely change his motivations as a character. And then you and I would be sitting here debating, oh my gosh, he's just like all these other wishy-washy characters that we see nowadays that like doesn't mean anything to like his character and who they are as a person because they took this like really cool option and the director said, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if he shot laser beams from his eyes? And like it makes no sense at all that like he chose this power.
Your creative mind is very interesting because
it makes no sense, and it makes no sense in like the context of this person, other than we get to say we have a superhero that shoots laser beams from his eyes, and it's just like.
Well, I think there's ways you could have done it. They could have had the uncle be like, oh, you show him this life, and he'd be kind of interested in it, and him kind of maybe start to forget about his mom, and then I'm not done yet, and then the uncle be like the only caveat is like you have to do it alone, and that's kind of snaps back, but like, no, I came here for my mom, and like the whole movie he's been defying the stone and what the stone wants, and then him just be like, I'm taking it all. Keeps his mom. The mom can be there. The other mom can be there. Can have both of them, and then he can invite his dad to come do it, and like convince the dad that doing the, the war and industry and all that stuff that's kind of assuming the dad a little bit. The dad always makes time for the family. Kind of like the fighting for the country in the war did sometimes take precedent. He could bring the whole family and continue the stonework, trying to make peace in the other worlds because he knows this war-ridden country and he wants to keep some balance in this other one, saying fuck you, stone, I don't want to do without my family, and he brings all of them in there. Still have that family mom story and have him be like, he starts to go in there, swept up in this, and realizes, oh, I'm forgetting where I'm here and what I wanted, gets his mom, all that stuff.
But then you don't get this. I have problems with this, and they're like.
It's just there's
this is
how the beginning of the movie sets up. You could have done a bunch of different avenues. He chose this one. It was not a bad avenue. I enjoyed it. Would watch again. Yeah. I'm gonna say as it was going, I was like, oh. I see like this fork in the road of the story. He could go for like these different directions. I wonder which way he'll go. And I was kind of like in my mind, I was kind of building up some interest in this one option he could go, and then he didn't go that. And then I was like, oh man, he just took a couple steps in there before turning around and going back the other way, just like kind of get a little something from it. He didn't. You're like, oh, it's okay because you're Studio Ghibli, but that's kind of my thing. It's like it's not like. I'm not saying it's bad. It's not saying it's not like he needs to have done that or it makes the movie terrible. I'm just like, oh man, this world was so different things he could have do because he left it so open for the audience to come up. I was like, oh, he could do like that, and that would have been cool. And it's like, but he did this other thing. That's fine. It's still good. I mean, it's like I kind of came up with some more built into the world that could still tell the stories going on that I was kind of. Which makes it go to like my 4 or 5 on the top 5.
Disagree. Felt like refreshing, be able to draw my own. Refreshing, have a character that was very steady, what he was in the beginning, what he was in the end, and we had character change without giving up our morals and giving what's important to us. It's like
that's all, and that's all good stuff.
These were all great, refreshing things. I am perfectly happy with it turned out, and that's what it is. Yeah. Do I also see all these things? Or like the movie could have like chosen these other avenues? Yeah, sure. But I am happy with it. Felt so classically that I think.
If you like Studio Ghibli movies, you're gonna like this.
I think my biggest disagreement with that is that like. I had gone down one of those other paths, it wouldn't have felt as like true to a studio. Where like I ended up back where I started. I ended up back in like the regular world, just like Spirited Away, right? Like she's gone and she's in this fantastical world and she goes through this change and she comes out on the other side, but we're back where we started. She has both her parents and their new house back in the room. Maybe something's, but I'm back where I started, and I've gone through this big emotional. I feel like there's a very similarity to that, and like Spirited Away could have done a bunch of different things, but like I wouldn't change Spirited Away's plot or perfect the way it is. I feel like this does the same, very classic studio. Like,
yeah, I don't think you're gonna be disappointed in
no,
if you like studio like this. Do it again. Studio Ghibli does it again. Alright. Anything else? Final thoughts? Score?
out of what?
10.
10?
Yeah.
A 9.
9?
A 9.
Yeah, I got like I'm like right there. Close to 9, but probably gonna go 8, 8.5. I think that's still pretty up there. Pretty good.
Especially.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially with today's stuff. Well, thank you everybody for watching. This is gonna be a long one. I don't know how I'm gonna edit it down. If you liked our disagreements with it or our back and forth, let us know. Let us know what you thought in the comments below if you actually saw it. Everything, what you think. I'm perfectly willing to accept that I'm in the wrong. It was a perfect movie, and nothing needs to be changed. That's fine.
I won't accept that it was not a perfect movie.
Yeah, my skin's thicker since my Invincible review, where I'm a terrible, awful person. So please let me know what you think. Like, subscribe. See you next time. Where's an Aussie? Allie, Bama.
They both finally left us when we're signing off.
Allie, Bama. Say bye, everybody.
Oh, it's Allie.